Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Wonderful, wonderful. We'll give everyone 2 minutes before we do introductions.
Yes. Just get my microphone and my... Bit warm today.
It is very warm today.
Bit warmer than I thought.
It's very warm, but it's okay.
Have we got anyone around? Oh, you can't see me on TikTok now.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good point. Do you want me to move over a bit more? Are you okay?
No, I'm fine there.
Have we angled everything right? I think we have. It's fine. It's cool.
I think we're okay.
I think we're okay.
We'll do a sound check first, shall we? So, have we got everything set up on there? Are all the right lights flashing? And
Yes. Everyone should be able to hear us everywhere.
should we do a silent one? No, just to see if anything's moving on his mics. I'd say that were perfect.
I was holding my breath.
No, yeah, just to be quiet. It's not a game.
Wonderful. Okay, right. Well, welcome to episode 8 of Wild Conversations. I'm Jess.
And I'm Steve.
And you need to be in shot on TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
This is all...
Maybe we should put that one further back.
Oh, that one just twisted round a little bit. It's okay. That's
Yeah?
fine for now.
Okay.
We'll stay as we are.
Okay.
Is everyone okay? Oh, look, we've got little flash drinking
We
receptacles.
do. We have our LWP water bottles today, which are a bit bougie.
Bit what?
They get bougie.
What's
Bit
bougie?
fancy.
Oh, is that what? All right, I see.
Mhm.
It's a nice word, isn't it?
Right, so episode 8. So last week we left off at the maggot room, which was absolutely vile. But what I did want to touch on is the fact that obviously in this room before there were maggots roaming around and flies and the whole infestation problem, it was set up to obviously be a hospital of sorts because you had all the brooders that were donated to you, right?
Yes, that's right.
Before they were destroyed.
Well, yeah, they were destroyed, yes, but they were recovered. So basically, what we did is because Squirter took all the actual, which is the name of the parrot. Squirt.
Right, okay.
He used to go like that. Hey up, Squirt. That's just the way he used to walk in
Really?
one ear. Hey up, Squirt. He used to- Anyway, but he took all the plastic off
Yeah.
the front cover. So what we had to have them done is heat treated, jet blasted, and took them back down to. I think it was stainless. I don't know why they didn't keep them as stainless in the first. Oh, I think it was chrome plated. So, and then they were okay.
Yeah.
They was used for a further 12 months, 18 months, something
And you
like
used that as like your hospital bay.
Yeah. So basically, very difficult to explain, but the entire area was split up into 4 areas.
Okay.
Which is like a little work area. So I was into inventing things.
Right, you still are, to be fair.
Parrot related things at this point.
Right.
So one of the things that one of the things I used to think is parrots when they go to sleep, all day they've got the feet like that.
They do,
Like
yes.
that, right? Okay, and that's nice because they get like endorphins from doing that, which say right, everything feels safe, and if they go on one leg, that means they're really comfortable. So the amount of people.
And it's a muscle that clicks into
Well, it's a
place.
tendon, yeah. So what happens is like where the tendon is. So basically, as if you imagine that's his foot,
Right.
then his tendon's all nice and loose there, and he's just holding on tight. And then when he wants to be comfortable, he drops his body.
Right.
And as he drops his body, it tightens that.
Right.
And tightens that. So
Right.
then and I did a test on this.
Okay.
So Eric, the famous cockatool that used to go all over the country with me.
Yes.
He used to fall asleep. I used to have my chair next door because he was never in a cage.
Yeah.
And the chair next door used to have a perch on it, and he used to fall fast asleep. And I used to turn around and look at him, and he'd be like that, with one leg tucked up. And I used to think, I wonder. So I used to go around the next corner a little bit faster than normal, and he'd just go like that.
Just to test it.
He'd just go, and that were locked. So obviously, when they're in the trees at night time and the
Yes.
wind's blowing,
Yeah, it doesn't affect them.
they just carry on going.
Yeah.
And so I was into inventing things, and one of the inventions I wanted to make was, I call it a nighttime perch,
Okay.
because I was thinking, well, once they realised there was no wind and
Mm-hmm.
they was in an area where they could just literally go to sleep, I wonder if they prefer to have something flat
Right.
to put the feet on.
Yes.
So I invented in my little workshop a little perch that had got 2 bolts on it, and
Okay.
it was a nice flat shape that sat in the corner.
Right.
And I put it in every single cage I'd got,
Right.
and every single bird used it.
Oh, really?
They all went to sleep on that top corner with a flat perch, and like they even
With
had
flat
one
feet?
where they had a flat foot on one, and because we used to, one of the other big contacts we used to get from people with phones is we've got a problem. I think he's got hurt his leg he's tucked his leg up and it looks like he's hurt it, and it's like, oh right, no, that means he's actually really happy. He's really good. So that was that room.
Yes.
Then next door to that was basically like my hospital room.
Yes.
And that had got a big glass window in it.
Okay.
And then next door to that was where I had birds and my little office. Now remember, I was in the office, so the birds next door to that was a door that took you out into the garden area.
Right.
So these birds that were inside could get into the aviaries outside.
Right.
So they used to go through the
Okay.
wall and fly about, and then if they heard me, they'd all come flying in and cause absolute bedlam.
That's nice, though.
Well, it was nice until...
It is, well, I suppose it is until you want to get some work done.
Well, not only that,
That's
until,
not
I mean, obviously that's where I used to run Parrot line.
Yeah.
So every single parrot that came learnt the words Parrot line. So every single parrot that as soon as the phone rang, they all used to go, hello, Parrot line. And you know, I actually know what I sounded like.
Yeah.
And what I must have done then in them days with the phone, because everybody's like, just pick your phone up and answer it and be hello, Parrot line. And then I must have like talked and strangely enough listened.
Yeah.
So I must have talked and listened and then laughed. And I must have done this with everything. You know, like, hello, just phoning to let you know that your uncle's died. No, I used to laugh at everything. And so because these parrots...
I suppose it's a politeness thing as well, though, isn't it? I think...
Yeah, I think it's like making people feel at ease.
Yes, yeah.
So every African grey was in there. As soon as... Because remember, we're talking pre... These were all just ring, ring. What everybody's gone back to now
Yeah.
because they've all fed up with that.
Yeah.
So as soon as it went ring, ring, hello, Parrot line. And I was like, turn on and think, that's me that's just said that. So I used to pick the phone up and it was like, huh? They've already answered it before. So that's where that room was.
Right.
There was negatives to that.
Yes.
So one of the negatives was that I didn't realise, I give advice out on it now, but I didn't realise how bad parrot dust was. And obviously, going into parrots, underneath their main feathers, they have like a downy feather. And we
Yes.
call it down.
Yeah.
Like you get it. I don't think you get it now. Do you get feather and down in pillowcases?
You used to. I don't know whether it's a thing anymore.
I bet it is, but I bet today it's a really expensive thing.
Yeah.
You know, 'cause everything's foam, isn't
Not sure where
it?
that stands on, like, animal cruelty, though.
Well, no, because it's not. They
Having
don't.
feather down in a pillow. I'm not sure where that
I
stands.
don't think they chase them around and pull the feathers out.
No, I don't think they chase them at all. I think that's the
No,
issue.
no, I don't. No, I don't. I think these are. I don't think these were done for it.
I don't know.
I don't know. We'll have to Google
Yeah, we'll have
that
to
one
Google
day.
that. Maybe
So-
they're synthetic feathers now.
Maybe, but obviously, the down underneath is their insulation.
Yes.
And with certain parrots, like cockatoos and some of the small parrots, theirs is called powder down.
Okay.
So it splits them into
And
two
it really
groups.
is.
It is.
It
I mean,
really
it's everywhere.
is.
It turns in. Do you know the best way of seeing this kind of thing? I saw it with when we'd got security put into Ark, and at night time I once put the cameras on to check them all, and it was pitch black, and I thought there was something happening in there because it was just a mass. And it was just
powder,
dust.
yeah.
It was just powder dust coming off them.
Yeah.
So obviously I was breathing that for a long time. Cockatoos have it more than most because theirs is powder down.
They do, yeah. As soon as you hug a cockatoo, it's just there's white dust.
Yeah,
all
you're
over
just
you.
white.
There's no escaping it at all.
And that acts as a water repellent.
It does. It's really, really effective. It's actually really interesting to see.
Yeah, if you actually start running water on them, it just runs
Yeah.
off. And then all of a sudden, it's as though it's washed it off. And once it's washed it off, it then starts to soak in.
Yes.
And then it somehow triggers it back out again. So that's one thing. Talking about that, I'm sat there in the office for probably 2 years. And then I noticed on a night time, when I wondered why I sneaked a mouth organ to bed with me every night and realised that I didn't. As I was going to sleep, you go...
Because you had too much dust in your lungs.
So I had to go and see Professor White. I still
Right.
remember him.
Okay.
Big chap, massive chap.
Okay.
And he said to me, we're going to do a scan. So they did a scan. And when he came back, I was sat in his surgery or wherever it is.
Right.
And you know what they do? They put them up on the screens. So straight away I look and I thought, oh my Lord, whatever it is, I'm riddled in it.
Oh no.
The entire lot is black.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I said to him, he could see the shock on my face. And then I turned and he got a smile on his. And I said, what's all that black? I said, what's all that black all over the x-ray? He said, that's healthy lung. Right. And he says,
right.
he says, I knew what you were thinking then. He says, you thought you'd got something, didn't you? I says, I thought I'd done it. I was wondering whether we're going to get out of the actual surgery today. Jet black. So he says, you have got something called pigeon fancier's lung.
Yep.
With basically where people that's had, and this is why when we digress a little bit, not a majority, but a huge amount of people that bring their birds in do it because they've got respiratory problems.
Yes.
And it's not always the parrot, it's the people that's got the respiratory problems.
Yeah.
And when you're keeping them in, imagine this, where how warm this is. Get a parrot that flaps its feathers.
Yeah.
We're just going to be breathing that in. And so you end up with a proper, and it's a real illness. It's a real thing. And so I said, how do I get shut of that? He said, well, just get shut of all the birds.
Oh, easy.
I said, oh, right, I see.
Easy job.
Okay, yeah, that's I'll do that. I'll start another job. And then he says, he says, I can hear a wheeze. I said, yeah, that's part of it. He says, no, that's something separate. He said, I'm going to send you for a test on that.
Oh, right,
I said, okay. And that came back and I'd got psittacosis. Are you going? Dust. We've just been talking about dust. This is what happens.
I'm going to keep it in. I've got it. It's under
sure?
control.
You've
I've
got it? That's okay.
No sneezing today.
Very good.
Carry on.
And so I then got psittacosis.
Right, okay.
So psittacosis, unfortunately, for old people and for young people, really young people, it's a horrendous.
Yes.
It's like the worst flu you could ever get. And in the early days, they thought you could only get it once. And one of the vets that I used to really, really admire, somebody called Alan Jones, and I just happened to talk to him very recently about it, and I said, I've been diagnosed with psittacosis. He says, He said, I had it twice.
Oh, wow.
And I said, you can get it
You
twice.
can get it twice?
So he said, yeah, I got it 6 months later. Yeah, so I got it twice. I got shut of it because I was I was a fit young man. I was like
He still
20.
thinks he's a robot as well. So.
I was like 24, 25, I could do anything. So anyway, but the actual dust was a serious, serious problem.
Yeah.
So eventually, obviously, once we moved out here, never had a single thing.
That's good.
It's always there. I think we breathe in, even with the PPE that we wear.
More dust than we
should.
Than we think we do as well. And it only takes for me to spend a whole day inside for me to start coughing and wheezing. It doesn't take a lot.
Well, I used to try to do this experiment with people with greys. I don't know why that happens, but it happens every single time.
It vibrated it this way.
Yeah, it's moved it more square. That's quite good. That well done. So yes, it literally is just in case we get a call. When we have a phone, we have to put his radios on in case somebody else is trying to call us. So what I used to try to do, especially with African greys and cockatoos, if I went to people's houses and they'd got, lots of people in them days used to have like, used to be a lot of fablon around.
Yes.
And dark fablon. And I used to say to them, right, let's just move one or two ornaments. And I'm not saying you're dirty.
Right.
I'd move the ornament, then I'd wipe it dry, then put it back, and then carry on talking to them.
Right.
And then when I'd finished, move it again and say, right, that's how much dust has gathered there in the hour that we've been talking.
I've got you, yeah.
And that's how much you're breathing in.
It's a lot.
So we used to try to promote people to get these, especially with people with allergies, these air movers that sucked them in. So that's that room. And then next door, so if you imagine me, I'm sat in this huge room, there's a window there with a hospital.
Okay.
And then there's a window there with any babies, because I used to do a lot of hand rearing.
Right.
So that was like the hand rearing room.
Yes.
And that's where I could see, if you started seeing the little heads bob up, I knew then that they wanted to say, well, you know, like, obviously everybody says, oh, you know, when you've got 30 or 40 birds to do, you go, oh, that's lovely. But you know, when you're just doing it round in circles all the time.
Yeah, it becomes a lot. It does become a lot.
But my mentality is that I like it when I'm needed.
Yeah.
And when you've got 40 parrots that need you, and they see me and they
nice,
think, oh, my dad's here, and they all fly out and stick all over you, and they're ripping you to pieces, but you don't show that. And they're all biting you to get up there, and you're saying, oh, no, they're lovely, and there's bits of blood and things like that. And you say, no,
wonderful.
I never tell people that. It's just so that's where we actually. So in this little medical
room, going on in a very confined space for what you had at the time. Obviously, you only took on what you could take on, but you must have had issues as well that you couldn't have solved. I mean, with all the best will in the world, you must have needed veterinary assistance at some point.
Most of the time. So what I used to work on, and this is what we used to get out to people, is first aid.
Yeah.
So there's three different things. You've got psychological problems.
Yeah.
I put myself way above 99% of vets on that, unless they go down that avenue of studying it.
Yes.
But unfortunately, vets are so busy that there's no way can they spend that time studying them.
Yeah.
So they saw a lot of parrots, but they saw a lot of injuries and illness.
Yes,
They
rather
didn't
than
see a lot of psychological
issues.
They tried to do it with, and we'll go on to this in the future with, there's some of the things that some of the methods they used to try to use to stop the hormones that started them mutilating and things like that. So you've got that side of things. Then you've got the actual medical problems. That's where a vet comes in on his own, especially if it's a bird vet.
Yeah.
But then you've got first aid.
Yeah.
Now, first aid was always a bit of an issue of you can't, even us, if a parrot comes in with a bloody toenail, we can't phone a vet and wait for a vet to phone us back.
No.
Especially when you've got 1,000,
Yeah.
because that's going to happen 5 times a day. That's just a fact how it happens. So we used to like try to get first aid out there for people, and I had 3 or 4 vets. So we'd got the 3 or 4 vets I spoke to were Harcourt Brown.
Right.
This is going to be a little bit like last week in the fact when I was talking about friends, we're going to be talking about vets, but only in a small way.
Okay.
So you got Harcourt Brown.
Yep.
And he would by no problem at all, he'll discuss immediate first aid with you because he wants the animal to be secure.
Yes.
And then you'd got another chap who was an absolute, he probably made a huge name for himself, and they called him Mike Stanford.
Okay.
He were brilliant with parrots. And then you got a couple of others, which were Neil Forbes and Alan Jones. All of them brilliant.
Yeah.
So when it come to like first aid, we used to just say to people, right, you've got cuts and blood. One of the worst things is if a parrot bites its tongue. Yeah. And they do it, the amount of blood.
Yeah.
And what they do, the blooming things, is they can feel it running in the bottom of the beak. So they'll let the lower mandible fill with blood. And then when you walk up to them, they shake your head. and it literally sprays everything. But you'll think they're hemorrhaging.
Yeah.
So the amount, and especially if they've got a cockatoo, and the cockatoos used to love it because they used to like put the beak in such a position it used to run down them. So when you'd walk in, you just got this, and people used to freak out.
Pure white cockatoo with red blood all over it. It's like a horror story.
So first aid was a real key thing, and it is today. So we always try to say anybody with parrots. So if you look at it on a general thing, so the aim is with all first aid, exactly the same with human first aid, is to try to tend to what you've got in front of you before you make the decision whether it needs to see a medical professional.
Yes, yeah.
Whether it's going to see
to assess
a
the
vet.
severity, essentially.
Yeah, and obviously you can't, I mean, all of our vets were all at least an hour and a half away.
Yeah.
So if you've got something, if you've got a bleeding parrot, you have to be able to stem it.
Yeah, you have to do something immediately, otherwise.
And I give you, again, examples on this. If they clip, like, so we're going to a little bit of biology. On a feather, when a feather comes out, for the first tiny little bit of feather, it's absolutely chock-a-block full of blood.
Yes.
And it's the blood that feeds it until it gets to a certain length. Once it gets to a certain length and it's classed as mature, then the bloodline actually cuts off, and effectively it's a dead piece of. So can you see the sheath where the quill is?
Hang
on that photograph? I don't know what you can see, guys, but we've got something appearing on your screen.
I can't see anything yet. I'm struggling.
All right, she's struggling. She's trying to do something, but she's struggling.
I'm doing it now. Hang on. There we go.
There we are. So that where the quill is there at the
Twitch,
bottom.
You should be able to see this.
Yes. That would be absolutely full of blood.
So that's here.
That bottom bit, yes. That's what feeds the feather. Now, once it gets to a mature feather, once it's got to the size it needs to, it then cuts off. Just automatically. Just literally cuts off. So if you.
So that's again here.
Yeah. No, at the bottom it'll cut off.
Oh, right here.
Right to there. So that's it. That's where it actually just stops, and that's it. There's no blood in there no more.
Yes.
But if you actually pierce that bit there on the quill, that bit there,
here,
yes. If
here.
if you pierce that, or if the parrot pierces it,
right,
before it's got to be full maturity,
yeah.
Oh my lord. Does that let some blood out?
It really does, yeah.
And we used to have to, and this is where the vets were brilliant. So the vets in that situation said, well, you can't physically stop that because where it's bleeding isn't where it's coming. That's only where it's coming out. It's actually, the supply is here.
Yeah.
So if you imagine, if that's the feather, that's the supply, and I've bit there, so blood's just oozing out. No matter what I do there, that blood's going to keep coming because we've let it out. So what you have to do in that situation, which I don't ask anybody to do it unless they phone us up so we can tell them, because there can be some real serious consequences here. And that way you have to turn the valve off.
Yes.
And the only way you can do that is to pull the feather itself. If you pull it incorrectly, you've lost your parrot forever. Yeah. And when I say this, we had a parrot called Holly. And it came to me as a really bad mutilator. and it was in the early days, and literally, this parrot, it literally, because it couldn't fly, because it had eaten all its own feathers, then I used to literally carry it all over the place with me. It had its own little sling and everything. And
why did the owners give it up?
Because they couldn't cope with the stress. And what it did is, certain parrots, you can tell them when they've got really bad stress, especially African greys, they'll bite the toenails, they'll dance in the corner, and then they'll rip the feathers out, and then they go beyond that, and some of the extreme cases. So you've got different types. You've got feather picking, where it looks like they've got a deficiency, and they're like twisting it and chewing the feather, as though they're getting something out of it. Then you've got what we call stress plucking, so the old fashioned African grey hens, the imported ones, they always used to seem to pluck a bald spot just on the lower abdomen.
Okay.
And me and Graham Frost, this is not science, so please don't go and say Steve said this.
Theorised.
This is our theory, that it was always on the hens, and it was as though and they didn't do it in the wild, but when they came over here, they had to find a way of regulating temperature, because we used to go very cold here.
Right.
Where they lived, the African greys, yes, it went cold in the winter, but they weren't breeding in their winter. So it might have gone down to 1 or 2 degrees, but we were having -5, -6s. So we used to think, I wonder if they're doing it just to actually regulate the egg temperature when they were sat on the egg. So that's like localised plucking. But then you'll get the ones that are suffering, like we were talking about with Oliver when Steve went on holiday.
Yes.
She would just strip the lot off.
Yeah.
Literally. Well, Holly was one of these. She would strip everything off. And we tried everything. And this is how it ties into some of the stories with the vets. So one of the vets, Andrew Greenwood, we're talking 30 years ago. None of us knew what it was. I mean, even today, we don't know the trigger.
Yeah.
We know it's captivity.
Yes.
We know it's being indoors.
They don't do it in the wild.
They don't do this in the wild, unless they've got a mental problem.
Yeah.
But it's captivity, and it's something to do with what we do. And it might not be what we do physically, but it's our environment. We change it, we go on holiday, we have a kitchen fitted, and that's something that needs to trigger it.
Yeah.
The biggest issue is when they trigger it, the parrot then sees a huge change in your demeanour and the way that you treat it.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it becomes a positive thing. You walk in, it's got no feathers, you scream like that, that's no problem. You grab hold of it, you give it love and attention, love that. Bite a new cage, all of a sudden, this is quite good, this. Pull a few feathers out, get a new toy.
Yeah.
And literally that's how it happens. So
it's almost like positive reinforcement, essentially.
Yeah, in a really weird way.
Yeah.
So what we knew that it was, we thought, and I mean a lot of it, so there's lots of different causes for self-mutilation, but one of the causes is definitely hormonal.
Yes.
So if you've got a young cockbird or a young hen bird that's coming into maturity, living in a pet situation.
Yeah.
So remember, this parrot's been, and this is one generation from being wild. So in the wild, they would hatch, stay with the parents for about 18 months, 2 years. They're fully weaned at between 6 and 12 months. And then in about 2 years, they would then fly off to another flock, meet another mate, and either she moves in with that flock or he moves in with their flock, and then they start and they move that way.
Yeah, promotes like genetic diversity, so they're not inbreeding.
So they've gone. Well, you imagine it in captivity. They are born, they don't see another bird, they're then hand-reared, they then put into somebody's house, and they are absolutely perfectly playable. But they get to about 2 years old, and that's when they should be
leaving the nest,
fledging, and and that's it, and going. That's them. They should be like flying the nest, like we say. But everything starts to get problems. So their hormones kick in, their instincts kick in. They realise there's something wrong, and some of them just go through it, no problem at all. Others suffer in different degrees.
Yes,
and that could be from toenail biting to just playing with the feathers, over playing with them, and taking bits of
a lot of cockatoos get neurological issues, don't they?
Oh, they go. I mean, I think because what happens with cockatoos, because they're the next level of intelligence as well. I think they then start suffering from others. I think they realise there's something wrong. I don't think they realise. Oh my lord, I'm on my own. There's just me left. I don't. But I think
I'm supposed to be a parrot.
I'm supposed to be in Australia. Yeah. But I think it's just they realise there's something wrong, and they turn
something they can't control, something they can't fix,
and they have proper mental breakdowns.
They do, yeah.
So then the average is what they will do is once they start to mutilate through hormonal problems in the early days, the vets would try 2 different things. Since then, I think they've tried a 3rd one. I've never had it done to any of our parrots, but I do know 1 or 2 people have done it. So one of them was to do mind-altering drugs, things like Valium.
Right.
Not Valium, Prozac. So they give them Prozac, which is what I don't know if you've heard much of Prozac, but Prozac is basically what they give, if you have a nervous breakdown or if you've got a bad mental awareness, Prozac is a calming.
Right, okay.
Now, so if you gave them Valium or you gave them Prozac, when you gave them the dose, that was brilliant. So basically, you've got an African grey living in a cage, ripping itself to shreds. I give it some Valium.
It stops doing it.
It stops doing it. But it's not stopped doing it because we've sorted the problem out.
No,
it's stopped doing it because it can't move. It's like it's vegetable. Yeah. It's so.
Yeah,
but
not an ideal situation.
No. So we realised very quickly. So again, this is with really the main two on this was Andrew Greenwood and Nigel Harcourt Brown, and the idea was right. That stops the problem there, or it stops what's happening, but it doesn't solve the problem. So what I created then was, all right, if they've got to go on, if they're really extreme and they're hurting themselves and they've really got to go onto this medication, then what you need to do is when it comes out the other side, so if you say it's going to go on for 4 weeks, in 4 weeks when it comes back round to normal reality, it's in preferably a different house, but in a different room, in a different cage, with a totally different environment. So right. When it like comes out of it, yeah. So when it comes around, it's like, oh, what's happened here? And it has no knowledge of it, because if you just keep it on the Valium, all you're doing is just sedating it.
Yeah, which is not good.
And then one of the next levels is they started, and I think they do this now. They give them hormone injections to try to prevent their. So basically, like we do with the big cats when we give them an hormone implant, to stop their actual hormones.
Just to clarify, not like we do, like people do. We have actually.
Yes.
Done the opposite with our cats.
Yes.
When they have come to us with implants, we have not done anything.
Oh no,
not
definitely.
Renewed them or
so
anything.
they do them to stop them breeding and to stop the aggression and everything. And we've had them arrive here with, so like a lion, if you get a big male lion, he'll lose his mane and everything because his testosterone becomes zero or practically zero. And so that's what they tried in a lot of these parrots. Today, I don't think there's enough parrots around now to worry about that, because I think there's obviously a big concern about how much they do mutilate.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not going to be around long enough. You know, parrots are actually, their numbers are dwindling so quickly that there's and this sounds terrible, there's nobody going to make any money out of this. If it was chickens, because we've got 1 billion chickens, do it tomorrow and they'll invest millions into it. But unfortunately with parrots, it's people just sorting out their pets.
Yeah.
So what was going on there is, where the vets is concerned, if you've got a first aid problem, all you can do is actually sort out the things such as the feather plucking, like we've just said. You do need to see a vet.
Yeah.
If it's a toe that's cut, then
they bleed a lot, but they do stop.
And you don't need to see a vet. I mean, probably the easiest thing to do if you've got a parrot with a toe bleed, especially if it's handleable, just sit it on your arm and press its foot into a bar of soap. That's as good as anything. Or go and buy a styptic pen.
Yes.
Yeah, styptic pens
are
brilliant.
Really good. They're blood stoppers.
And the other thing you can get is the liquid skin, the liquid gel that you can use.
Yeah.
These are things to have as like first aid
resources
items that's there. So what you've got to look at is if a parrot, so you've got different things. That's an injury.
So not to interrupt you, but to go back, what did happen to Holly?
To Holly, all right, sorry, yes. This is why Jess is here, otherwise I'd just be talking to you and you'd never get the answer to anything. Right, so Holly, see, I always know, everybody at the end of it turns around, it's good job Jess were there, isn't it? So basically Holly was absolutely besotted with me.
Right.
And I could do anything with her. And we got her feathers coming back, and she was literally, whenever she saw me, her head started bobbing up and down, and she couldn't wait to jump on me. She never got to be fully feathered, never got to be back to absolute perfect, but we got her about 80% there, which was an absolute success.
Yeah.
And then one day she was flapping the few feathers she had in her cage, and she got one of them trapped in the cage, and it twisted, and it was a little bit brittle and started bleeding.
Yeah.
So I get a call, so I shoots back home from work, and obviously there's blood everywhere, literally. So I got hold of the bird, phoned one of the vets up, no idea which one, so I'll not say which one, but I phoned one of the vets up, and I said, look, this is happening, there's blood everywhere. And they said, right, the easy thing you're going to have to do, because on certain occasions they do lose too much blood.
Yes.
And so you have to hold her down really tight, strap her in a towel, get hold of the feather as tight as you can, and yank it. And as soon as you yank it, it'll close the valve. I did that, must have hurt her, never ever from that day onwards did she even look at me or step up on me without growling.
Yeah.
So that weren't too bad for me. I mean, it were heartbreaking then because it was like, oh my God, just done all that work with her.
Yeah.
But we was due to move here. So she went outside with the others. So that wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
But if it's your pet
Yeah.
and you do that,
It's
you
the
could
worst
actually,
thing you can do,
you could just eliminate it.
Yeah, you don't get their trust back.
No. And
essentially.
so when it comes to them kind of things, it's the same as, and again, we've had these discussions and we're not, don't take it as granted that we're for or against this, but it's like when they have parrots' wings clipped.
Yeah.
If you clip them in the wrong place, and you clip them a little bit too high, or if you go into a blood feather, you're going to get the same thing again.
Problem.
And if it does bleed, the chances are you have hurt it.
Yeah.
And if you hurt it, then it's whether, if it can associate it with you, the chances are it's not going to actually like you for a long time in the future.
So you did have a wide selection of vets on retainer, essentially, for your parrot needs. Because, I mean, on the other end of the scale, there aren't a lot of people in the country who are specialists in parrots.
I think at that point there was probably 5 or 6 in the country.
Yeah.
So you've got, and this is, you feel sorry for vets here because I don't know exactly what the figures are, but the figures are very close. In those days, what you would get is, I think a vet course throughout college, university and everything lasted about 6 or 7 years.
Yes.
Within that 6 or 7 years, you only got about 4 to 6 weeks on ornithology. And within that 4 to 6 weeks, you only got, if I remember rightly, 2 or 3 days on exotics.
Yeah.
So people coming out at the other end knew what to do with a cow, knew what to do with a dog, knew what to do with a cat or a rabbit.
But not to do with a parrot.
When it comes to a parrot.
Reptiles are the same, aren't they?
Reptiles are the same now.
They don't get a lot of education unless you specialise in that specific topic.
Well, that's what you got then. So you got people who were coming as vets who actually loved parrots.
Yes.
And like Harcourt Brown used to breed parrots.
Yeah.
So there was no better vet because the last thing he's going to do is guess.
Yeah.
Most of the other vets, I mean, the other avian vets, Neil Forbes, absolutely brilliant, amazing. Andrew Greenwood, he went all over the world, literally. I mean, we are some of our biggest arguments, and we have fell out. He'll tell you we fell out, we've said things to him, but we also are professional enough to know that we fell out because we were passionate over things.
Yes.
He fell out with me over, I changed the form once. He sent me this form for, and I was into computers, and he was old-fashioned, he weren't into computers. And he sent me this form that we had to fill in for sexing parrots and taking blood tests. And he says, you're going to be doing quite a lot, so I'll send you a load over. Well, these forms were pathetic. And I mean they were pathetic. I don't know who'd done them, but they were pathetic. So I'd got all the computer equipment, so I redesigned it and kept everything as it was, but made it look lovely. Sent it off to the labs.
Yeah.
They recontacted me and said, where have you got these from? These are brilliant. Can we have some more? When Andrew went, he mentioned it or something like that. And they said, oh, no, we've got these now that Thieves didn't like that at all. He actually phoned me up. He actually phoned up and we fell out a little bit on the phone. But then we bumped into each other at one of these parrot shows and you didn't fall out, you disagreed.
Yeah.
And he was, the respect of him was, we knew that he was by far, there was only 4 or 5 proper avian vets then. And then you got Harcourt Brown, who was notorious as being the most frightening vet in England. He really were. And not only for people taking the parrots, but for other vets. So other vets used to have to go to...
What a reputation.
Oh, God, yes. And then they used to have to go to Nigel to actually do, like, work experience.
Yes.
And they had to do so long. I don't know how long, but they had to do a certain amount of time. And I remember another avian vet called Mike Stanford, who I really, really respected. And he were a proper mate. He were a nice bloke. I'll tell you his story after this one. Okay. We fell out over something stupid. Well, we didn't really fall out, but we'll go into that. So I was actually... So Harcourt Brown was notorious, but he was a proper avian vet. But he weren't interested in avian paperwork. He's not one of these that wanted to be known as... Because there was only so many certified avian vets.
Oh, you mean like...
going to gain another degree on top of another degree. He was his wife was into horses. She was a horse vet. And he was just a normal vet, but he'd got a real keen interest in parrots. And everybody knew him all over the country. And so, literally, when I bumped into somebody like Mike Stanford, we got to know each other at a couple of parrot shows. Found that we both had... He was only a young bloke then. I don't know how old he was. I'd like to know how old he is now. If he gets to watch this or he comes across this, you need to send me an email, Mike, to let me know how old you are and what you're doing. He must still be into parrots because he was a parrot fanatic, and I'm sure he will still be into it. So, and I was working with him, and there was a big place over in Telford that used to do studies on some parrots and whatever, and they were quite good with parrots. And me and him
don't mind the noise of the screws that Winnie is chucking all over the table.
That little grinding that you can hear is the cat's sliding screws all over the place. He feels embarrassed now.
What are you doing?
He's being caught out. So me and Mike ended up, we would talk to each other a lot, and it's very difficult to get a vet to do that.
Right.
Because they're very, very busy creatures, these vets. And trying to get them to actually socialise, they can only socialise in their own time when they've got it. But unfortunately, so what we were doing, we used to work with each other, and we used to pass information to each other. And one day, from nowhere, remembering I'd started the charity then, Parrot Line, and one day I got a telephone call from a chap saying, I've got a poorly parrot, and I said, right, okay, whereabouts are you? And I used to have a list of where the Avian Vets were, and I'd work out on an area and say, right, you need to go and see Mike Stanford. And he said, okay, so they went to see Mike Stanford.
That's very efficient of you. That's very good.
I used to have all this because it was like
good.
so basically I used to have I'd have a map in my house, and all the top vets I'd got them pinpointed, and all they had to do is give me the postcode, and I could say, right, your nearest one is him, and if you tell him this,
that's good, isn't it?
And it worked quite well. Well, sometimes it backfires, like this occasion.
Right.
So this chap turns up and gets some work done on his parrot. I don't have no idea what parrot were, probably an African grey, something like that. Get some work done on it. And then I gets one of Mike's staff call me, and she said, is this Steve? I said, it is. And she said, I've got a chap here who's brought his African grey in. And I said, well, I've no idea what you're on about. So she says, well, she said that you gave him our number. So I said, oh yeah, that's all right. She says, well, thank you for the business. She says, but he did say that because you're a charity that you would pay for this. And I went, no, that's not what our charity does. Our charity doesn't pay for it. What we do is we advise people, we raise money to look after sick parrots, and that we rescue. And she went, all right. I said, that's no problem, that's okay. So she went back to him. Anyway, there was a bit of an argument because he'd run up quite a bill.
Oh, God.
And then she contacted me again and said, no, he's adamant that you said you would pay for it. And I said, I can't, but we don't pay for people's work. That's not what we do. And Mike was only young then, so she went into the back and said, Steve sent somebody here, they've run a big bill up for 300 or 400 quid, and we're talking 25 years ago, and he's refusing to pay for it. So instead of Mike phoning me, it was just an instant, all right, if we're going to rip each other off, we'll leave it at that then, and never spoke. And we've never spoke since. And it's because we haven't spoke because we dislike each other, because I've never disliked Mike, because I understood what it was.
Yeah.
I knew where the problem was, which I've got a few vets like that. I stay my peace, and we fell out, but if you're falling out and you're talking, that's fine. If you fall out and don't communicate, then that's a problem, because you want to know why they fell out. So Mike, unfortunately, went into the parrot world somewhere along the line, and I saw his name pop up a few times, but in all honesty, we've been just so busy. I know it sounds daft, over 25 years, actually we've been busy for 25 years, but unfortunately we have. And if he's been busy, I didn't speak to my brother for 30 years, so it shows how busy we are, because we were both just busy.
Yeah.
And that's how it was. And then so you got Harcourt Brown. Neil Forbes, he was like more of an advisory vet for me, because he lived too far away. Right. His surgery was in Wales. Well, he was around Gloucester, and then he ended up at Wales. And then from there, probably the most famous out of all of them, as far as being what I was saying before, when I was speaking to Mike, and I said, and he was talking about training, and he said, where do you take your parrots in if you live over that side of the country? I said, I'll take him to Harcourt Brown because he's like my vet. And he went, oh my God, you are joking, aren't you? So I said, why? He says, what a frightening vet that is. He says, I had to do my training with him. He says, you daren't even, you couldn't, all you could do is ask questions. Don't diversify onto anything else. He would shout at you and snap you down. He was so good at what he did. He didn't what you're guessing. He used to say to people. So people, he always, for whatever reason, he always booked me in as the last one. Hello.
He just got straight into his face there.
So he always booked me in as the last person to see him, and we would sit talking for half an hour as well as doing the parrot. So I was fine with that, but he was very, very strict on what he did.
Right. Okay.
And the vets so people would be sat outside of me, and he'd come out and he'd say, Mr. Smith, and he'd say, yeah. He says, this parrot, he says, my parrot's been doing this, doing that, doing the other. I think he's got this. And he says, well, if you know what he's got, it's a waste of time, wasting my time. You'll toodle off and I'll sort of. I'm sitting there thinking, let me just tell you this story, though, one thing that did happen. Oh, I've just thought of this. This is from nowhere, this. I rescued 2 big green wings,
right.
Ruby and Arnie.
Okay.
And they were lovely. And they came to me from Birmingham. I can still remember where they came from a chap called Bilal.
Right.
And they're still here, 2 big green wings. And they must have been with me for 30 years now. And he came and he loved these parrots. This chap called Bilal absolutely loved them, but he didn't realise how noisy they were, like we were talking last week.
Yeah.
And he ended up with noise abatement orders from both sides of his.
Oh,
so he brought them to me and said, and they were only young, they were only about 2. And he said, would you look after them? So I said, yep. So they've lived with us forever. But on one, whatever it was, Arnie trapped his leg.
Right.
And it's swollen up quite badly. So I needed his ring cutting off. And you know what rings are like. And I was on my own then. So I didn't have anybody to hold it and grind it.
It's like chainmail.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
It's horrific.
So I phoned Harcourt Brown up.
Yeah.
And he says, you bring him up straight away because his leg will swell and he'll have problems. So I said, okay, no problem. Well, you know what I'm like? When I go in there, I don't leave very often. But when I do leave, I think I'm going on holiday. Wherever I go. So I always pull into the nearest fuel station, fill up, and I get my sweets. And I get my drinks.
Right.
And so I put a £5 worth in petrol and 15 quid in sweets and things, you know.
Okay.
And then so I'm like going up the road and what have you, and I'm talking away to the Arnie, and he were in pain, but he weren't bad. He was just sat there, and I opened the cage and he was sat on top of the cage. It was no problem at all. And then literally we're just going into Harrogate, and I thought, shall I have something to eat now? No, I'll not. I'll wait till I'll just go to the loo. So I literally locked the door. Jumps into because there's no losing vets or anything.
No.
Jumped in, has a pee, comes back out, gets in. As I'm driving, I thought, what can I smell? I can smell chocolate. And I turned around and there's only half a Snickers. And it were a big Snickers.
No.
It raided my chocolate thing. And I turned around and looked at him, he'd got chocolate all over his... Well, I'm going to see one of the strictest vets in the country. And he's got chocolate all over his face. So I thought, oh no, so I pulls up, gets a tissue out, washes all his face, makes him perfect, spotless. So, and obviously I'm laughing. Didn't think what was going to happen. I had no idea what was going to happen, so I'm laughing and thinking, yo, get me to trouble, yo. So, goes into the surgery, I've got him sat in the cage because you're not allowed to have the carriers. And Steve, okay, goes through, right, what's wrong? It's in with this, okay, no problem. So I sits him down, he's looking at me, he says, right, we're going to have to do, he's going to have to give him a little bit of sedative. Has he had anything to eat? And I thought, oh. And just as I were about to say no, he went, brought 3/4 of a Snicker back home.
Why just down
Well,
there?
he hadn't even eat. It was just a Snicker that came back up and just came, and I'm like looking and thinking, this vet's going to kill me. And I said, Nigel, I promise you. I was like a child. I was waiting to be told off. I said, I promise you, I don't give him chocolate. He's just stole it. So he thought it was unbelievably hilarious. And I think Arnie thought it was quite cool as well. So anyway, we wiped his mouth and he cut his off.
You got the ring off, okay.
They take something, because what happens is, and this is again, you've seen it hundreds of times. So what they do is, when they come to us, if they've got a really strong ring on, and they have to have a strong ring because they're strong birds, they're not allowed to be able to crush it with the beak, because if they do, then that's when it starts. But every now and then they'll do something, and they used to do it with us, which is why we used to cut a lot of rings off. They'd just get a little cut, or they'll fly onto something and get a little... Something will just damage the skin there, and it starts to swell. But as soon as it starts to swell, it hits an immovable force.
Yeah.
So then it starts to
swell more.
Until eventually it hides the ring. And when the guys are going and inspecting them, if the bird's sat comfortable and he's got that foot tucked in, or the other one tucked up, you can't see. No. It's only when they start walking about and they're either limping, or they've got this big bulbous thing on the bottom of the leg and you think, oops. And then we have to go through all the hassles of... and we have had... I mean, again, I can go back on a few stories. One was one of your predecessors. I don't know what they're doing. They're attacking something.
The cats are doing something in the other room.
One of your predecessors, who you knew quite well, Ruth, she was with me, and we're going through all the training, and we had a parrot that had literally, the ring had got so bad. Yeah. And I thought she was as hard as nails. And I said, right, hold this, and this is what we're doing. And as we're working away, I I saw in my eyes to one side, I could see this figure moving. So I'd got hold of the parrot's leg and I had to put my arm round and put it round the waist. And I said, "Are you going to go?" And she went, "I think I'm going to faint."
Which is really shocking for Ruth because she was a person who got stuck into everything.
Oh, yes.
Like there was nothing that bothered her at all. But that one thing.
I think it's, when it's, when you're playing about with, if it's a long time and you're playing about with blood and
you become really fixated on it.
And I think you actually start feeling, I once went to hospital to see it with my brother as it happened, and he'd just had an operation. And I was sat in the hospital, and because he had a heart operation, so they had to keep, sadly, going in to do things because he couldn't stop the bleeding. So they put temporary staple stitches in. So I was sat there one day, and I wasn't definitely not squeamish at all, and I'm sat there, and he was fast asleep. So I was looking at all these staples, and how the skin sticks around it really quickly.
Oh.
Yeah, that's it. And so then the nurse came, and she said, "How's things?" I said, "It's fine, no problem." She says, "Has he been asleep all the time?" So she said, "Yes." She says, "I'll just check his staples because we're going to have to look." And she just touched the skin and pulled it, and I'd been transfixed, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go. I'll just go for a walk," and because I think it's lovely outside here, isn't it today? It's lovely day. I'll just go for a walk. And she might look thinking, "Off you go, off you pop before you faint." And I was ready for going because I think you just get into it too much, and that's what she did.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what happens with the likes of they look a lot worse than they are.
Yeah.
But they're not nice.
No. Yeah, they're definitely not nice. We've had some proper odd ones, haven't we?
So you get two different things. You'll get them like kind of injuries, and then what the other side of it is, as they live in colonies, so they end up in pairs.
Yeah.
And if you watch parrots, they trust each other implicitly.
Yeah.
Them big beaks, again, a green wing, a big beak, they'll let the other one do his eyelashes.
Oh no, it's crazy.
They'll preen his eyelashes, and you're looking and thinking, "Oh my Lord, just
one wrong move."
Or if you just want to have a laugh and say, "Well, see if I can set this eye out." But then what the other do is they'll preen them, and they go into this heaven. They go into this euphoria.
They become a little bit obsessive.
Yeah, a bit trance-like, and they'll let them preen them all over, and then they'll get down and they'll preen all the legs, and they'll get to the ring and they'll be preening the ring, and then moving the ring around, and the other bird's just like, "Just do it to me, it's fine, that's lovely," and then go,
yeah,
and then that's it. It's clamped down, and then we don't know.
No,
and they have a bit of a spat, and then we find out afterwards. So going on first aid. If you have a problem with if you've got a bird with a ring, that's really important because it shows that it's captive bred or hand reared, as long as it's a hand rearing closed ring. But if you do get something stuck, always check them. Check them regularly, when they're coming out, and you just
make sure there's movement.
Yeah, so if you can spin it.
If you can spin it, because if you can't spin it, there's an issue, and you need to get it removed.
I mean, the worst thing about rings is we get rings here, we just can't read them. They're a waste of time. They're like a piece of jewellery.
Yeah.
Because they don't.
Worst ones for me are when whoever is making, because everyone makes their own rings. You can put whatever you want on your rings.
Yep.
There's no rules and regulations. You can put poop on it if you really want to. There's no.
I would just drink in my drink.
There's no rules though. So some people, some breeders like to make up their own squiggly lines, and we can't type in squiggly lines to our systems because we don't have their made up squiggly line on our keyboard.
There's no alphabet. Don't know what
There's no alphabet for it.
It's from the squiggle bit. But yeah.
Fix this really quick. Oh no, it's gone.
Oh, it's gone already. Yeah, so we have. So if you've got a hand-reared bird and it's got a ring on, you might not have had no issues. You might not get no issues at all. But if you have, if you're still handleable and you play with him, just make sure you can clean it. I mean, again, these are little bits of advice, and I have to work on what people have done. Steve, who I was talking about last week, and he had here we go, brains, Jake and Oliver.
Yeah.
So the macaw, Jake, we'd had since he was a tiny little chick. He trained him to sit on his chair arm, put his foot up so that he could file his toenails. And he used to use
That's well good.
Now, Jake found that as a massive, same as being preened.
Yes.
It became a mutual preening with each other. And if you can do that, that will save all these sharp claws. Yeah. And in a house situation, you don't need them. And Jake would literally lay down, with his feet up, and you could do it, and use one of them big steel files. So they're all things to do. But one of the things that we used to use is the concrete perches. But the concrete perches have to be a lot bigger than the feet. Because if the feet go all the way around it, the claws don't even touch it, so they have to be a lot bigger. But the problem with those is they then wear the numbers away.
Yeah, on your rings. Ring. Yeah.
So when they come to us, and the biggest excuse, well, not biggest excuse, but the most common age of all parrots is 2. And when you say, how long have you had your parrot? Well, I've had him 18 years. I got him when he was 2. I'm like, no, you didn't. That's 2 is when the only time you could tell how old they were.
Yeah.
Up until then, it could have been any age. You know, like, so it is it's not an issue. It's just something, if you've got a parrot at home and you've got rings on them, just keep a lookout on them and check them. That's what I say.
That's a good bit of first aid advice.
Is that all? Yes, that's his first aid. Is that all? We want to let you know what we're doing here. So we've got a list of things we've got to do to make sure this podcast keeps in some kind of order. So Jess keeps it all strict, and I've got a list of things that I have to look at to see, because what I can't do is mention. I can mention 1 or 2 vets. We've got a vet now.
I don't know what he's doing right now.
No, we're still talking vets and first aid, because I want to get the vets out of the way, because then once they're all gone, we don't have to talk about it. You know what they like, vets. Vets are like, what they do is, vets know what I say, what you do is, once they've passed their qualifications, they then pick them all up, and then they take them all to an island for a month, inject arrogance into them, and bring them back and say, right, you're now into the world.
That's not true.
Most vets will listen to
We know
this.
some lovely vets.
We are fortunate. We beat some vets into order, and our vets are...
That's not how it's happened at all.
No, we are very
Have you been
lucky.
to this island?
Yes, I went
Seems
to this.
like it.
I had to go and check them, yes. But no, we're very lucky. So what we've got today, again, when you're talking exotics, people have no idea what they're talking about. And unfortunately, vets are always very, very busy people. And vets, whether you like it or not, there is a big article on at the moment about vets' prices.
Yeah.
A huge thing of people not getting their animals sorted out. It's not the vets, and I'm not sticking up for vets here, because we pay big money for our vets. It's not the vets who control this now. It's everything going around them is costing so much more money. And one of the biggest issues, vets don't like saying this, but I can say because of where we are. One of the biggest issues is they're frightened to death now.
Yeah.
If they make a mistake with you, so in other words, if they tell them, you'll take your little kitten to them and they say, I think he's got worms. Well, Ian Bates, our vet, would know if he's got worms.
Yeah.
And he'd turn around and say, no, he ain't got worms. He's just done this, or she's just done that. He's scratching, don't worry, he'll be fine. If they said that and then they got worms, and just by happen somebody stood on one of these worms and went in the air and banged their head, they'd then sue Ian.
Which is crazy.
If the little animal passed away or fell really ill, they'd sue the vets. So what they have to do now is, instead of Ian turning around and saying, no, they haven't got worms, we'll do a test. And we'll not only do one test, we'll do the best test.
Yeah.
So them best tests cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so the vets are, don't get me wrong, there's always going to be some people are going to have stories where they're going to turn around and say, yeah, but they don't have to charge you 100 quid to see a bird. If they do that, then that is wrong. But if it's talking costs, if they've got to buy things, if they've got to do tests, if they've got to do things, most vets don't have the choice of that. It's nothing to do with them. It's the company that runs it. We're really fortunate. Our vets know. I mean, our vets, if they watch this, will be like, especially Ian Bates, they will be laughing. We have got 3 unbelievable vets, and I can say that because we don't have to have them. We can pick and choose our vets who we want because we employ them, but we don't really employ these 3. They're part of our team, and we've got Ian Cope, who is our zoo vet, because we are a zoo, although we know we're a sanctuary, we still have to be a zoo and have a zoo license. Then you've got Sarah Pellet, who is Howard. She's because she's a bit posher than us. She's our exotic vet, and she's like our little sister. She's
like an encyclopedia of knowledge. She's got so much in her brain.
She's one of these that is constantly on another course.
Yeah.
She spends 20% of her time, instead of being at home vegging out, on courses
learning.
all over the world learning.
Which is lovely. It's so admirable.
Oh yes, definitely. And then we've got Ian Bates, who is by far, out of, I can say in my 40 years of working with vets, he's hands down the best vet we've ever had.
He's incredibly good. He is family.
He is. He is just a real vet, and he's come. And when we start talking about, when we get to the latter stage, not latter stage, but where we are now, when we're talking big cats, then you'll realise what kind of vet. I mean, saying that, God, we were talking about 15 years before we get to big cats.
I wanted to talk about plastic chairs today, but...
Oh, what time are we on?
Not enough.
Oh, we haven't got time.
No.
So we're going to be starting next week on plastic chairs.
We're going to try to.
We've done the other bit. I think we've done quite well on them. I think we've got... So people can actually now, they don't have to panic about the parrots. If they need a vet...
There's certain things that you need a vet for. Oh, hang on. I'm trying to put a puzzle piece in. Nailed it.
Nailed it.
So there's certain things you do need a vet for, which are like your major illnesses. If your feces changes to a really weird colour that's abnormal, if you find something in the feces that's not meant to be there.
Another little story just popped up.
Oh no. I'm trying to think of anything else you'd need to go to a vet for. Major injuries.
Major
system changes.
If they start mutilating.
Or major behaviour changes.
You can contact us, but not for illness, and don't contact us for injuries, because all we'll do is tell you. You can contact us to say where is our nearest vet.
Yeah.
We can find that very quickly for you. That's no problem.
We can help you with behavioural changes.
That's what you really need to contact us on if you've got a behavioural problem.
Because we've seen, I'd say, 99% of behavioural changes in parrots.
Oh God, yeah, and we've probably seen 100 times more than any vet has, because we see it on a daily basis.
Go on, what's your story?
So the last little story is, I once got a call, just to listen to you then talking about the drop-ins and everything. I once got a call from Graham. Oh, he'll always get mentioned through these, because Graham was an integral part of us when we were starting. And he phoned me and said, Steve, you need to get out of here quick. He says, it's 8:30 at night time.
Refresh me on who Graham is.
Graham is Graham Frost. He's the one that he says the parrots are hanging on him, and I did his concert. I did his loft for him. And she's talking about me.
Why don't I remember this?
The guys will. For him. Yeah, I was doing his building work for him.
Yeah, you did his loft, and he did an award.
He came down with me for the... No, he didn't. He was around when I got the award. When the QC phoned me about the becoming a charity. I was at his house doing his loft. She's saying yes, she's no idea. But Graham Frost was like one of the originals. I'll tell you what he was. He was the one that rescued Star with me, the big green one.
That's it, yes.
So he's the one that was there. And he phoned me up, and it was past tea time, so it was past veterinary time. And he said, Steve, and he used to live about 15 miles from me. Steve, and it could do you over here. I think we've got a serious problem with Rocky, or with this big macaw. And I said, right, no problem. So I said, why? He says that there is blood everywhere. And I said, have you checked his feathers? Yeah, I've checked that. That's no problem.
Checked his toes?
Checked his toes, yeah. Checked his tongue, yeah. He says, honestly, just come and look at the bottom of his cage. So I raced over, got over there, looked in it, and I'm colourblind. So obviously I'm looking and thinking, that
all looks the same to me.
It don't look like blood to me. So I says, right, so he gets him out, and we're having a look at him and everything, and it looked like he was bleeding from his vent.
Right.
Because it was everywhere.
Yes.
And I said, and this is coincidence.
The vent is the back end, by the way.
The vent. Yes, it's the.
I don't know why I keep doing this. It's that bit.
Is this why our parrots are shouting in hospital all the time? Just doing a vent inspection.
No.
So I'm looking around, and it sounds disgusting, but what you have to do with fecal matter is really you should move it about to see if it's got any slime in it. It should be quite neat. It should be like a nice creamy urate, and then a solid fecal matter. Not solid, but like a lump of greeny brown.
Parrots also don't pee.
No.
They have their urates and their feces in the same place. So the urates come out white.
Yes, white or creamy coloured.
White or creamy coloured, and then the excrement comes out as like a green.
Yes, depending on... And you can... influence that by what they eat.
Yes, so sometimes if they... Oh, no,
well,
I'm not going to ruin your story.
So as
this might ruin it.
As I'm working, and I've got him sat at the side of me, and he went to the toilet, and it did look like blood. Yeah. But as it hit me, I went, you wouldn't happen to have had beetroot tonight, have you? And he went, I ain't had it tonight, but I did this dinner time, I had beetroot. He says, in fact, Rocky loves it. I said, what, beetroot? So he says, yeah, he said he must have had 4 or 5. He says, because we grow them ourselves, so we don't put them in vinegar, they're not pickled. So he's just eaten beetroot. I said, yeah, and he's just pooped beetroot all over me. And that's how quick it goes through the system. Parrots...
we have beetroot day here as well, don't we?
Yeah.
Where we put it in our rice and we put it cooked in our parrot mash. And most of the parrots poop pink. For the day, which is really fun, I think.
But the other thing is when, like, if a parrot's feeling a little bit rough or if there's a problem, we can flush them out very quickly just with fruit.
Yeah.
And it'll literally... So you've got to watch what they're eating.
Yeah.
But we will have a day on diet. We will have a day where we're talking about some of the things that you can feed, some of the things that... Within our story, because we haven't really... It's not... I bet the guys are thinking, that's a nice break, that. We haven't had a sanctuary day today. We've had a generalised day on vets and parrots, because we haven't really talked about the sanctuary.
No, but we've not done that for 3 episodes now. So I think maybe next episode we should get more onto the sanctuary, more on the plastic chairs.
Plastic chairs.
More on the plastic
because
chairs.
we need to build the sanctuary, don't we?
Yeah, we're not even there yet.
We haven't even started. We've got one Avery. I'm going backwards. Anyway, when I was 10, right, guys, it is 3 o'clock. That means we are about to depart from you.
We are.
And from me, I'm going to say thank you very much for watching us, especially for Jess for keeping me in shape, because I was losing it and I had no idea what we were talking about. I don't know where Holly came and went, but Holly came and went.
She came and went.
And we got it sorted out in the end.
That's fine. Thank you from me. Our next episode is going to be next week on Thursday, 2 p.m, as per usual for subscribers. Otherwise, you'll get the episode on Wednesday or Thursday the following week. So this current episode now is going to be aired publicly next Wednesday, Thursday.
Yep, and if you want to catch up on any of these, you can jump onto any of the platforms. And this is lovely to say this. You can jump on podcast, or you can jump on Spotify.
We're on
you
Spotify
can join
now.
Apple.
You can jump onto
YouTube.
like and subscribe.
Oh, we're everywhere.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Yeah, we've never had to say that, have we?
No.
We've never done anything. You can just like and subscribe to it. That's it. That's all you got to do. We'll do one on that. Just like and subscribe it. Right, I can't talk now. I'm going. It's 1 minute past and my tongue's disappearing.
It is, yeah.
Thank you very much for watching us.
Are you going to do those two?
I will, yes. See you later.